And that's, that was reflected in the way Berube has spoken about him really since the early days of camp, right through to here, the start of the season. But the flip side of that, I think at the same time is, they don't want to put too much on his plate. And I think that they're kind of going through, those two things. And really, it's kind of a weird last few days, I have to feel, for Easton Cowan, because he had such a good camp. It was all positive. And then because of the way the cap works, the Leafs sent him down as part of the gymnastics they were doing, just for a day. But, it means he couldn't practice yesterday with the team, and then rejoins them now. He's a scratch in game one. I mean, I would think he's a good bet to play in game two for them this weekend in Detroit. Now, no guarantees. If they win 6 or 7-1 tonight and everyone has a good game, it might be tough to take, someone else out of the lineup at that point. But, generally speaking, they obviously want to get him back into action here with the team, I think, pretty quickly. And if not, he'll go back to the AHL. But the Leafs are in a tough spot with this player because I do think that they're kind of wrestling with what's the best for his development. But also the league has changed the rules this year. And if any player gets sent to the AHL, they have to play a game now. So it's not like you can send a guy up, down one day, up the next day, and all of the stuff that we used to see in the past. And so when it comes to Easton Cowan specifically, I think where you're worried about or you're very cognizant of his development, they're going to really have to plan when he goes down, when he comes back up. And so, I get the sense that they don't have the exact plan in stone just yet. And, they just want to ease his transition. But, it's got to be a weird feeling for him, as I say, because everything was so positive, and then these last few days, and all of a sudden it just feels like he's on the outside looking in without a real clear explanation.
It's so weird, CJ, because he was tied to his line mates, Lorentz and Lawton, and it was like everything was positive. And then when that went down, all of a sudden he couldn't play in the NHL, which is a weird vibe for such a talented player. And if the Leafs do have success tonight and they don't change their lineup, you would think that's not good for Cowan. He's probably got to go down, because the one thing for his development is he's got to play.
Yeah. Right. And I do think that that's not a bad big picture. If he spends the first month in the AHL, I don't think that's the end of the world by any means.
I don't either, man.
The best thing for Easton Cowan is he knew this year, right? There's none of this junior stuff anymore. Like, he knew he was becoming a pro hockey player. He, with the way the Leafs have it set up here, he knows he's going to live in Toronto, and it's just a question of, is he with the Marlies or the Maple Leafs at any given time? And he's critically important to this organization. I mean, when you're in the spot the Leafs are, you just traded away so many picks over the years. By virtue of that, you're not going to have a lot of prospects. And he's, obviously at the top of their prospect list. He's moving into a player now. He's not just an idea of a future thing. But, getting him up and running, I think, is they're gonna do what they believe is best and be very thoughtful of this specific player. It's not just about the team. So, I'm willing to give them kind of a little bit of time here to see what that looks like. But, I can't imagine you're going to see him scratch too often in the NHL. I think if that's the case, they'll just be playing games down at, with the Marlies.
With Darren Dreger, TSN Hockey Insider, Chris Johnston, our TSN Hockey Insider, Leafs Habs tonight on TSN Radio. So from Montreal's standpoint, Dregs, they had a phenomenal stretch run down the stretch last year. Yeah. Unbelievable. They make the playoffs. They go out there and acquire Noah Dobson this year. What do you think the next step is here for the Habs? Like, if they officially recognize themselves as a playoff team, do they feel like they have to continue to prove that? They're still young. Damotov's here now. Lane Hudson going into his second year. Like, where do you stand on the projection of Montreal and the business that maybe still has to be done there?
Yeah, no, there's still work to get done there. They have some interesting storylines, right? We're still wondering, about their number 2 center. In fact, you're looking at that second line in Montreal, and you could, in theory, put question marks beside all of those guys. And, we spent a lot of this, preseason and training camp talking about Kirby Dach and Patrick Laine. And, there was some concern. They need Kirby Dach, a veteran, experienced player with injuries behind him, to get off to a good start, right? So by initially having him penciled in with Demidov and Patrick Laine, they felt like maybe that saddled him too much with the defensive cleanup, playing with those two guys. So it appears they're going to give him a different look, but they have comfort in going back to that line. I look at their defense, and I mean, their top 4 is rock solid. They've got Carey in their third pairing with Arbor Jacki, and maybe that's a temporary situation. I don't know. But I think that there's a real belief that they can go deeper than they did a year ago. I think the way they played in the second half and how things came together late in the season last year maybe went a little bit beyond expectation, but that's not where they're at right now. That's not. They expect to be a playoff team, plain and simple. And in the meantime, they've got that Lane Hudson contract extension, which, unlike Eichel and Connor McDavid, I wouldn't expect that this one is going to get done anytime soon. It's a
Why
bit
is
of a
that,
mess
Dregs?
there,
That should be a layup, shouldn't it? After what's gone on the last few days, isn't that contract a layup for those guys to get him done?
I mean, what is that layup? 8 times 10, oh? Because Noah Dobson's 9.5, right?
Yeah.
Well, if that's what he wants on the paper, then that's what you got to put on the paper.
Yeah, I honestly think it's been reported on well and fairly. There's a lot of emotion in that negotiation. You know, the family is heavily involved, and I think that wisely both sides have said, okay, let's just put it on hold for now, right? Cortex represents Lane Hudson has come in with a team approach now. It's not just one agent. You know, Darren Ferris is overseeing it. Ryan Barnes is involved. There might be a meeting with Ken Hughes, the GM, Thursday in Detroit. So tomorrow in Detroit. They haven't officially made that so, but it's a bit of a spicy meatball right now as far as the overall look of this thing is. So I think they need to calm down.
So guys, what did you make of the Oilers continuing to do some business as the reverberations of Connor McDavid's contract extension continue to be felt around the league? How did you interpret Matthias Ekholm signing up for 3 more years at $4 million, which is obviously a discount off his current cap hit of $6 million? I mean, is that a guy taking the lead of the captain? Or is that, a little bit of a risk for the Oilers, given the fact that he is 35 years old and, tacking 3 years on is going to put him into some precarious territory with injury and age?
Well, I see it, Dave, as a direct, trickle-down effect, I'll put it, from Connor McDavid. I mean, you're right. There's obviously risk at his age, and, he missed considerable time last year with injury and a lot of hard miles there. Been part of some long playoff runs, and he's deep in an NHL career. But, the flip side of that is this is not a free agent class that's shaping up in 2026 as being overly strong. And in an alternate universe, if he wanted to test free agency, I think there would have been more money out there for a player like Matthias Ekholm. But he and his family love Edmonton. And I think it's a lot easier to commit to stay with the Oilers when McDavid's going to be there, and you kind of have a better sense, if you're in his shoes, what those next few years are going to look like for the team. So, I do see this as following the lead, and probably we can call this a small hometown kind of discount from Ekholm, because I know off the ice and speaking with him a little bit that's been a place that actually reminds him, he said, of living in Sweden. I think he's really appreciated what it's been for his family and the lifestyle, and now the team has every reason to think they can keep being a competitor for the Stanley Cup, and that sort of cinches getting that deal done.